right, we're talking hockey. We were going to talk some politics, but I don't care about politics. Let's talk hockey. My man, Javier Gutierrez, CEO of Phoenix Coyotes, the Arizona Coyotes, the Coyotes. Shane Doan right there. Look at that. In our little studio having fun today. And we were just talking about, I said, are you happy? Because as we go through this entire voting process and you're out, I asked you what you're doing today. You're like, I'm shaking hand, kissing babies. And you said, I said to you, are you happy to do politics? And you are happy to do politics, yet here you are doing politics.
This is what I'm doing. And first of all, thanks for having me. Really appreciate always talking to you. And you guys are so great. And I was excited for this conversation because the one thing I have enjoyed is getting to talk to people and telling them about this very transformative project and to see them finally understand, as opposed to any of the nonsense they may be hearing elsewhere, just how good this is going to be. And, you know, the reason I'm here at the Coyotes is because Alex Morello came to me and he says, listen, I want to bring a Stanley Cup to the Valley, without a doubt. But there's always only one winner. And so what are we going to stand for as an organization? And he says, I want to stand for being an organization that leverages this incredible power of sports to make a difference in people's lives. And this project is the physical manifestation of making that difference. We're going to turn a landfill that's been sitting there for decades, and we're going to turn it into this landmark, this transformative project that I tell people, it is not a sports project. It is not a sports arena. It is a best-in-class urban redevelopment project that's anchored by a state-of-the-art sports facility that would be the new home of the Arizona Coyotes.
So as you talk about that, I mean, obviously there's, Tempe first. There's all these things. And I've read a lot of misinformation, disinformation. We live in a world now where, the internet was supposed to make everything easier, and it's made everything easier to be misinformation and disinformation. I read where you said that one of the hardest things to do is you are fighting more disinformation at times inside of your own organization against people who don't push back about what it's really all about. Explain that, because I find that to be interesting, how you, even within your own organization, I think there's misconceptions about it.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard for people to wrap their arms around the fact that we're going to pay for this, especially in this state. There is not a single sports or entertainment venue that taxpayers didn't pay to build it, that they're not on the hook for, that they're not guaranteeing whatever bonding the municipal entity or the public entity used in order to pay for it. It starts with that. When we say to them, we're going to buy the land, we're going to build every single building with our own money, and you don't have to pay for it. We're going to create jobs. We're going to create new revenue for the city. We're going to clean up a landfill, and you don't have to pay for it. That's just fundamentally different for people to hear. And so it starts by getting them there. And then you have to walk through every single component. And the misinformation that's out there, it's because it's really easy to say, oh, this is just a tax break. Oh, this is just going to increase my taxes. And when you tell them, like, actually, it's none of that. It's different. And so that misinformation, that misconception, again, even with some of our folks who by now are very clear about everything that we're talking about, but that's the hard. It's really easy. The bumper sticker is really easy to say, right? It's a tax break for a billionaire.
And because that's what it is, right? Like somebody said, like Dawn Pennant Thatcher, who's going to be on our show at some point in time. She was on yesterday. Read a bunch of things about, she's one of the Tempe First and Vote No. She's like, it's just a $500 million tax giveaway. And nobody ever hits them back and go, well, explain exactly what does that mean. Yeah. Are you putting up $500 million? Is there some sort of bond going out there? When they say that, how do you hit back at that?
Well, first of all, it's wrong. Okay, that's the first thing. And let's start with the fact that there is no revenue on this site. There are no jobs. There's no economic activity. It is an unlined landfill and has been for a very long time. Yes, half of it is the city's facilities maintenance yard where the trucks go to sleep at night, basically, right, for the city. But there is no economic activity. We went to the city and we said, you own this property. Why don't you guys clean it up and then sell it to us, right? Clean it up, put the infrastructure, water, power, what have you, then sell it to us. And the city says, we don't have the money to do that because it's about a $210 million liability, and we don't want to bond our taxpayers to do that. Said, okay, well, why don't we propose something where the economic activity that we create could absorb your liability? And that's what we've proposed. We said, we'll buy the land And better yet, we'll give you a $40 million non-refundable deposit the moment we put a shovel in the ground to start remediation. If we walk away, you keep $40 million bucks. We're not going to walk away from $40 million.
No.
But that's where it starts. Then we will create a special district that's just that property, right? Which currently has nothing on it. That special district will issue, yes, tax-exempt bonds, but they're not government bonds. They're not backed by the taxpayers. They are only backed by the land that we bought and the real estate that we're going to build. And this is how they're going to be repaid. If you come onto the district and you buy a jersey, if you stay at a hotel, if you go one of the restaurants, we're going to charge you a voluntary surcharge. And I call it voluntary because you don't have to come onto the district.
Yeah.
If you don't come onto the district, you don't get that charge, right? Yeah. Second, yes, there are going to be taxes created because of all that economic activity. We're saying to the city, and this has already been approved 7-0 by the council, half of those taxes that are created over the next 30 years, capped at $247 million, we would like for you to pay your liability, right? But we're creating those taxes.
Yeah.
We're creating that economic activity on something that has no economic activity right now. So you get to then put that there, but you get to keep $215 million over the next 30 years, $7 million a year for something you didn't pay to build, for something you didn't pay to clean up. And so that's what will repay those taxes. But again, what's the guarantee on that? The land and our real estate. And we'll even put a lien on all of our real estate, just like there's a lien on your home, yeah. Right? And if there's any shortfall from our surcharge and from those taxes that we're asking you to pay your liability with, we will make up the difference. Taxpayers are not guaranteeing this. There's no money coming out of their pocket because there's no money they're putting in day one, right? What they're suggesting is these Jeeplets, right? In essence, property tax abatement. They're going to cost all kinds of money to the city. Again, let's start with the fact there's nothing on there right now.
Yeah.
We will pay to put something on there that creates economic activity. That's number one. Even if you don't believe that we should be, treated the same as every other developer, there's 37 Jeeplets along Tempe Town Lake. The State Farm office building right next to us, that has a 99-year property tax abatement. Every single other sports and entertainment venue, State Farm Stadium, Footprint, Chase, Sun Devil Stadium, the place we used to play at before, they don't pay property taxes in perpetuity, right? Even if you don't believe we should be treated similar to that, because again, we're asking for a limited duration of 30 years for the arena, the theater, and the practice facility, and then 8 for the others. Even if you don't think we should be treated, as others have to create economic activity, here's the facts. The direct financial benefit we're going to give to the city of Tempe, buying the land, our voluntary surcharge, the community benefits that we're paying for, and the taxes we're creating that the city will keep, that's $800 million, 808 to be exact, right? What is the cost of that Jeeplet that the city of Tempe analyzed? $115 million. So even if you don't believe we should be treated the same, let's talk about just numbers. On the one hand, $808 million. On the other hand, a Jeeplet that will cost the city of Tempe $115, net benefit of almost $700 million, $693. So one, we think Jeeplets very common.
Absolutely.
Most people have used them for economic activity. We think this qualifies as economic activity, right? Cleaning up a landfill. Number one. Number two, very common for every other venue, and we're not even asking for perpetuity. We're asking for limited duration. But number three, even if you don't believe any of that, $808 million of benefit on one hand, $115 million of a cost of a Jeeplet on the other hand to the city of Tempe, net new benefit to the city of Tempe, $693 million. Those are the facts. That's math. And that's the challenge that they're having with us.
When you go out and you go out and there's Javi out there, and you're shaking hands, yeah, kiss the bell, what's going on? You're doing all the things you're doing. It's funny because it's infectious, and because I've got some people that I know that are like, in some ways they're like, oh, because it's change. Dude, change scares people to death, and they're going to price people out of the market. It's going to be gentrification. You get all that wacky stuff. Kids are like, the environment's going to destroy us all. And at the same time, when you sit down and you talk math and you show it, even through their frustration, they understand and they see why it makes sense.
let's start with again. I've gotten the pitch down
Yeah.
in very simple terms. New jobs, almost 7,000 permanent jobs. Okay, new revenue to the city, $7 million a year over the next 30 years for a site that has been sitting there generating nothing. And that's $7 million after you take into account the taxes that are going to go into the liability that currently exists for the city, right? 3, we're cleaning up a landfill.
Yeah.
We talk about concern for the environment. It is an unlined landfill. I got into a very interesting conversation with someone like, it's not really a landfill. I said, well, first of all, it's called the Priest Drive landfill in city documents, number 1. Number 2, it has methane and toxins, and it has for a while. That's part, we believe, right, what caused the combustion that caught that site on fire. Yes, there were compost piles, that's what burned. What caused them to burn? It's the toxins that are seeping through. And the challenge for that landfill is that it's unlined. That means it keeps decomposing, keeps going down further and further. We will go down and remove 30 feet, 1.5 million tons of trash. Those are facts. That's the truth. And so for us, we're sitting there saying, what is it that we really want as a community? Because we're part of the Tempe community. Remember, we're there already. We play at Mullet Arena. We want that landfill to be cleaned up. We want revenue for the city to be able to provide the other services that are so important, right? We want not to have taxpayers to be on the hook for that. They're not. We are. Someone asked me, wow, it sounds like there's a lot of risk. There is, to us.
Yeah.
We're the ones taking the risk. We're the ones. And I tip my hat all the time. Alex Morello has put in $30 million for a temporary solution for us to play at Mullet Arena, the most expensive locker room in the history of sports, to upgrade Mullet in order to be able to have an NHL broadcast in there for it to be NHL quality. We bought a players training facility across the parking lot from the ice den. We upgraded the locker room at the ice den. We moved our hockey operations. We moved our business operations. We did all that in 7 months. This wasn't over time. We had to do it very quickly. And that's the temporary solution. $30 million while we try to spend over $2 billion for a permanent solution. That's commitment. That's willing to say, this is where I want to be. I'm willing to take on the risk. And so it's very challenging for us when you see this misinformation. They're throwing numbers out that simply aren't backed by the city's own analysis. Remember, we had to do a complete underwriting. The city did. They had a third party of our project, of the deal, and of us, right?
Yeah.
So it's the second time that Alex Morello has been underwritten by a third-party entity in the last 2 years. The first was ASU. Yeah. ASU also did its own underwriting.
Michael Crow will do that. Wants to make sure everything's above board and we're looking good.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did it, and we're playing there. This isn't we're going to be playing there. That's where we're at. And second, the city did as well. And they moved forward. And they also got letters from 7 of our current banks that are interested in providing us the financing to construct all those buildings, right? That's how it's going to be done. Our money with our banks to construct those buildings. We're wiring $40 million the moment that we put in a shovel in the ground. We're paying for the land. No one's giving us anything. We're creating the economic activity that then creates the taxes. By the way, the city owns that property. It is their liability. It caught on fire. That's their issue, and we're willing to absorb it. The other thing I've heard from some folks is that, well, we want there to be another analysis of something that could be better there. You know what it is? Taxes are not generated by office buildings.
No.
Or
not
by
anymore, by
apartments.
the way. Nobody's moving into office buildings.
Yeah. Office buildings and apartments don't generate sales tax.
No, they don't.
They don't generate hotel bed tax. You know what does? An arena, right? That has concerts and that has sporting events. Hotels that people want to come to Tempe because they want to have conferences there and they want to have conventions there. Shops, restaurants. The reason the city's third party called this the site's highest and best use is because we generate that economic activity that no other proposal. I've asked over and over again, what do people then who are criticizing this want to put on that site? How are they going to clean up the land? My understanding is maybe they want the taxpayers to pay to clean it up because there's no developer that's going to take on that risk.
No.
They haven't. It's been sitting there, right? This isn't something that's been not known for a long time. So there's no third party that's going to come in and clean it up. So do the opposition want taxpayers to pay for it? That's been unclear to me. And number one. Number two, what do they want to put on it? Do they want to put on more office? Do they want to put on more apartments? Again, those don't generate sales tax. Those don't generate hotel bed tax. They don't create the economic activity that then helps pay for the cleanup of that land. And that, to me, has been the other challenge. It's like, if you're going to critique what we have, what is your suggestion? And why haven't you brought that forth?
Yeah, it's funny because I've listened to them on a couple occasions on other shows here, and I'm just like, one of the things the other day is it's going to bring crime, and you're like, and then fentanyl was brought up, and I thought, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, it's because I feel like you're grasping at straws at that point in time. Look, nothing's perfect, but you've got nothing there. You've got an opportunity to upgrade. Homeowners, I'm sure, are like, well, traffic may suck, but I don't know about you, but our housing prices are going to go through the roof. Yeah. That's always a good thing. And I see frustration. The young kids are like, it's going to ruin the environment, the energy and CO2, and you're like, okay, whatever. But the fact is, you've got math and data, and when you roll it out there, and they don't have an argument, it becomes emotional at that point. And once it becomes emotional, you're not winning. And like you said, give me something better. If you got something better, show us something better. Sure. But I don't see anybody else out there going, let's buy this thing and do it. Right? We got to put up a water park with, there's nothing. What are you going to turn it into a park? It was a landfill. It's gross. You want your kid on a swing? Why does my kid have a third eye? I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't have been there. And so you go out and deal with them, and you've got to feel that you're changing minds, but at the same time, you also know you got to feel you're running into people that no matter what you present them, their feeling will always override their fact.
Yeah. Our approach from day one has always been, we're going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And part of the truth is to say, yeah, there are challenges here. This isn't perfect. Yes, I say all the time, there will be traffic, okay? The question isn't, will there be traffic? It's, how are you going to manage it? How are you going to mitigate it? So let's start with the fact that we picked Tempe. There was a Super Bowl in Tempe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with that. There is a football game in the fall that brings 50 to 60,000 people to Tempe, right? The Innings Fest just had 45,000 people on a Saturday and a Sunday. Oktoberfest brings 110,000 people. Tempe Town Lake is the second most visited site in the state. 2.5 million people visit it already. This is a city that knows high density events and high density gatherings. It knows how to manage it already. We've already had situations where we're at Mullet at 5,000 people, and then there's a ASU basketball game at around 12, 13,000 people. We're putting a 16,500 person arena. It's already been there. It's already, because our site is only about less than 2 miles away from where Mullet Arena is. You've picked a city that understands how to do high density, number one. Number two, this is the only sports and entertainment venue site in the state of Arizona, 5 miles within 5 freeways. The only one. You're not talking about deep in the center of Tempe. You're talking about the corner where you're 5 miles from 5 freeways. Third, we've made commitments to encourage public. We're going to do free shuttles to the public, to the streetcar, and to the metro stop over in Washington. We're going to increase the Orbitz shuttle that Tempe has to take people to Tempe Marketplace, to downtown Tempe, to Mill Avenue. And by the way, I also heard, well, you're going to hurt those areas. We're going to bring foot traffic. If you talk to the vendors there, the owners of those shops and those restaurants, they want more people. They want more conventions. They want more conferences. They want more people. This creates that differentiator because we're going to have something on ours. There's going to be Mill Avenue. There's going to be downtown Tempe. There's going to be Tempe Marketplace. It's going to be accretive. It's not going to take anything away from that. And so for us, we constantly point out there are things. Nothing is perfect. But this is a very, very compelling deal. And again, it starts with this. We're cleaning up a landfill. We're going to create new jobs. We're going to create new revenue, and we're going to pay for it. We're willing to take on the risk on something that currently right now does not generate any revenue. I've also asked, I said, okay, so how are you going to generate revenue for the public services that the city needs? For more police, for more fire. Mind you, we're paying for all the fire and police costs that are going to go onto that site. We're going to charge our tenants and our residents. That's just going to be a charge to them. So the city doesn't have to take on $1.1 million a year for the next 30 years. That's our cost. Again, we're taking on the risk. We're taking on the cost. This is a very compelling deal. And I understand when people can argue all day long about the merits of this deal. I'm happy with that. But what has bothered us, as you just said earlier, it has become personal.
Yeah.
When
they went after Alex, called him corrupt. I mean, what was that?
Yeah.
Being a Southern Cali guy, I know who Alex is. I know, I don't think people realize the story. It's like, from was it like a wedding dresses or a quinceañera dresses
Absolutely.
to pizza, and all of a sudden he's become what he's become, and it's an amazing story, but it became personal again, and it's like, how's he corrupt? Like there's just but you don't, and this, man, in this day and age, you don't have to say anything. Yeah. You can just accuse.
Well, that's why we issued a cease and desist on that term, right? The counter was, oh, you're doing voter intimidation. No, we just don't think you should call someone corrupt, connoting a crime, when that has absolutely never been anything he's been accused of or even been accused of, right? Yeah. Alex Morello and his family, they're the American dream, right? His parents are Cuban immigrants. As you said, he was a 16-year-old who started a tuxedo shop in his mom's bridal shop in downtown LA. He has gone on to build one of the most successful Latino-owned platforms in the country. And what I point out is, like, you're talking about a guy who's been in business for 40-plus years through the ups and downs. Arizona has seen ups and downs. Alex has never had a bankruptcy and never given back a company or a piece of real estate. But more importantly as well, we're in highly regulated businesses. Yeah. This isn't someone who has been hiding from regulators or from people who oversee them. We own a bank together, by the way, Safe Bank. I'm on the board. I'm an owner. I'm the one who oversees the investment securities portfolio. Very conservative bank in Southern California. We're in the media business. You guys know this. Yes, we own radio and television. The FCC regulates you every day when you're in the media business. And we're in the gaming business as well. We always say that. Alex owns the Sahara on the Vegas Strip, the Grand Sierra Resort in Reno, and a sports gaming license here. The gaming regulators oversee you all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And then to throw it in, we also own, as you know, the largest franchisor of sushi to stores and to retailers and restaurants in the country. The FDA and the FTC regulates us every day. This is a man who's had incredible success in highly regulated businesses, and it is completely false to suggest that he's corrupt, to suggest that he's not a good business person, to suggest that he is not someone that absolutely should be trusted, because people have. We have banks, we have partners, we had ASU underwrite us, we had the city of Tempe underwrite us. It's become very personal, and that's the only argument that we keep hearing over and over again.
Well, yeah, it's the whole, well, it's the rich getting richer. Well, you know what? The beauty of America is we're a capitalistic society, and yes, the rich will get richer, but it's always amazing because the rest of the world, as you know this, they design these amazing things like communism and socialism, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They're not amazing. And the rich are the people who design it. They never want to live in it. Mm-hmm. Capitalism has taken more people out of poverty than anything else. And we live in a country where somebody can start a tuxedo shop and go, hey, instead of knocking down the wall, there's a pizza place. I'm gonna build up a pizza franchise. I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna throw some of the Latin spice onto it and grow something like that. And I find it, when I hear stuff like, that's just emotion. Mm-hmm. Because there's no argument. So the argument has to be, well, you're obviously corrupt. Mm. Well, if the rich are getting richer, people are going with the rich, right? If you create, even if you halved what you guys would say, it's a win for Tempe.
Yep. We think so, and we've said that from the day one, that we'll take on that risk. Alex will put up his money. It's one thing for us to be sitting here, like honestly every other entity that's here in terms of the venues that are here, and say, taxpayers, we want you to pay for the land, and we want you to pay for the building, and we want you to pay for the renovations. By the way, one of the leading voices opposing us was a former council member, Lauren Kuby, who signed off on $41 million of taxpayer money for the Angels spring training facility. That is not what we're asking for. Don't put $1 in. But this is your liability. Yeah. We will create the economic activity. some of that economic activity needs to go and pay for that infrastructure. It's not going into our pocket. It's for the infrastructure. It's for the remediation. It's for taking down these overhead wires. I don't know if you've been on the site, but there's overhead wires that go not only our site, but across, the Salt River. This is their liability. We're creating an opportunity for taxpayers not to have to come out of pocket and not to have to guarantee it. We guarantee it. They are tax-exempt bonds, but they're not rated because they're not government-backed. This is not coming from general fund dollars. This is not backed by any tax increase. This is not backed by taxpayers. And so when you talk about, an economic system that does create the ability for a young man to get to the point where he's willing to say, I want to put in the money to build my arena, my sports and entertainment district, that is what we want. That is exactly what you want.
Right on. Right on. Okay, so sit there. We've talked about all this stuff. Let's talk about the hockey side of stuff really quick. You got a lot of draft picks.
Yes.
Is it like 47-ish, somewhere?
47 over the next 4 years.
That's massive. Most ever in that period of time?
Most ever.
I'm looking around. Are you going to trade all 47 to get the number 1 overall pick so we can get that guy, Connor Bedard? Because he is generational. He's a freak of nature. The ping pong balls are out there. I've said it. You guys can see me, hear me. I have a weird thing that it's bouncing to the Chicago Blackhawks because they're original 6. But just in case it doesn't.
Yeah.
The hockey side of things, at the end of the day, it's this arena. It's got to be full of fans, and fans want winners.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we had planned from day one. This was the strategic plan to say, you know what, let's bring in a winner in Bill Armstrong who's won a Stanley Cup, who has helped build a Stanley Cup. And that's also important. I don't think people understand. He was the head of scouting for the St. Louis Blues. All those players, they scouted them. They drafted them. For the most part, that's how you win. Yeah. And that's been the analysis that Bill came in, and he said it's going to be tough because you have to basically build a sustainable winner through a foundation, through the draft. But what have we done? We've acquired significant amount of draft assets, as you talked about. We've also invested in significant amount of resource. I think we have the largest scouting department in the NHL. We also have one of the largest player performance departments, nutritionists, sleep science. We have, our performance technology that we utilize. We are fortunate to be in Arizona, which is the home of sports performance. You have football players, basketball players, you have hockey players, you have former athletes who come to Arizona because the resources here, the doctors, the nutritionists, the trainers, the physical therapists, they are here, and we have fully invested in that. So it's not just the draft, right? It's not just the players. It's the whole ecosystem that we've invested in because we did have a plan. Our plan was, let's build a winner to sustain this for the long run. Not just ups and downs, not just peaks and valleys, but to sustain the winner. And it does start by actually drafting. So yes, Connor Bedard, generational talent. But I was just talking to Bill because, on the way up to Edmonton, I said, so what are your thoughts? What's going on? He says, it is a very deep draft.
Yeah,
it is a very deep draft.
I watched the World Juniors because my son Jack,
Absolutely.
we watched every second of it. My brother was over hanging out with us. We watched the whole thing. And Bedard is otherworldly, but they were showing it is a deep draft across the board.
And I will point out 2 things about the World Juniors. The winning goal scored by Dylan Guenther, who's a Coyote. The leading scorer for the American team, Logan Cooley, who is a Coyote. The future is bright, and the future is now. When you look at Matthias Maccelli last night, right, against Connor McDavid, one of the best players, if not the best player in the world.
McJesus, they call him.
Absolutely. Clayton Keller having an incredible season after his horrific accident last year in terms of snapping his leg. Yeah. He's come back better than ever. And, our coaching staff, led by Bear, Andre Tourigny, has just created this culture of competition. The challenge, quite frankly, is they like playing for each other. The mullet magic is real. I mean, if you look at our record, 19-11 at home, we have a better home record than half the teams that are going to the playoffs. That's unheard of when you're in the midst of this strategic rebuild that we've been talking about. But that speaks to the talent that exists today, the talent that we will attract. So, yes, would we like to have a shot at, a generational talent? 100%. But, we have 2 picks in the top 10 between us and the pick that we traded with the Ottawa Senators. It is going to be good. It is going to be very, very helpful for the long-term success of this organization. And that is coinciding in terms of our timeline with building this new sports and entertainment district.
So it's one of those things where you want to be on that rise, and all of a sudden the excitement, and you go and you look at what happened in Las Vegas a few years ago. They come into the league. Next thing you know, like, I think we won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's awesome. I'm pumped. I'm excited. Gut feeling, last minute or so. How you think things are going as you guys head towards the stretch?
We're working really hard, and we've always felt positive. You know why? Because the more people get informed, the more they realize this is a really, really good thing for our community. Again, jobs, clean up the landfill, new, revenue for the city, and I don't have to pay for it. Yes, I'm in. And so we feel confident. But listen, between now and May 16th, which is the last day that people can have their ballots mailed in and brought back, they need to be received by May 16th, by the way. Ballots are going to drop the week of April 17th. We recommend people mail them in no later than May 9th, but they can drop them off. It's mail-in only or drop off. But the closer we're getting to it, the more people are starting to understand this is it's the right project, it's the right deal, we're the right team to execute on it.
Right on, my man.
Thank you.
It's good to
Thank
see
you
you, brother.
so much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you.